Hello everyone, hey love lovers. So this is a Synastry analysis of Stephen Twitch, right? The DJ, who worked with Ellen. I think he was a DJ. I remember him from Wendy Williams show, and Allison, his wife, right? So of course, there has been news regarding, her publishing secrets that he held dearly to him, right? And of course, from the Synastry point of view, I can already see why, she's going around talking about these things. So let's get into the details. Also, thank you for buying the self-help book that I designed for you, which is called Dragon Astro Yoga. It is incredible, and thank you for your feedback as well, and and the geekly things. But thank you so much. It's still available on Amazon. It's going to be available in the stores near you very soon as well, right? The link is down below, of course, but let's focus on the topic of today. What we're going to be doing here is purely speculation, and everything is alleged, because I will be going also on to the posthumous analysis in this video. So then that's obviously quite serious, and and I will be careful, of course, with my words as well, due to the serious nature of this analysis, right? So we need to take care, as we get into it. I also noticed, some race influenced opinions, right? People feeling like, okay, because he was an African man, an American African, right? And he shouldn't have married her because she's Caucasian, right? She's an American Caucasian. And these things, unfortunately, we cannot control, because our charts, they determine which spouse you're going to get married to, right? For example, in her case, her Venus is conjunct with Rahu, which is obviously indicating that she would get married to somebody who's different from her, either by nationality, by beliefs, by stuff like this. And on his side, it's opposite. Obviously, her Venus is opposite his own Venus, and of course, because of that Rahu nature, it's obviously getting attached, or it's aspecting his Venus. So he becomes the Rahu, so to speak, or he's reflective of the Rahu in this. But it's quite important to also notice that, she places her Ketu with his Venus. We've already spoken about this in detail, where Venus conjuncts Ketu. I think just recently, again, I mentioned that Venus conjunct Ketu in a relationship, it does not give a happy relationship for both partners, because the Venus person is going to feel like they're giving and giving and giving, and the Ketu is just taking and taking and taking without even appreciating the efforts of the Venus person. And in this instant, the Venus is Stephen, right? And she's the Ketu. And it's karmic, obviously. It's indicating that they were past lovers, even in their past lives, and they came back to finish, the obligations that were between them back then, due to Venus being conjunct with Ketu. Ketu represents our past karmas and the rewards that we are owed to, right? Or that we have to serve or give attention to in this lifetime. Right, so basically this race thing, for me, I don't, when it comes to love and the people who choose to date outside of their race, I don't see a problem with it, because I understand it from an astrological point of view. I understand that if if there's a Rahu element attaching to your Venus, then you ought to, or you're bound to, have a relationship or union with somebody who's different from you. And of course, not everybody understands, in a society. So of course, they're going to look at it from, their own perspectives and their own subjective opinions, and socially, it's all race, right? And I mean, I speak from my own perspective as well, because, I have mixed raced children. My spouse is a Caucasian. I've always dated outside of my culture, outside of my people, outside of my race and nationality, so I understand why people would date out of their environment, right? And of course, same thing from my chart, I understand why I date outside. And similarly, I have received, criticisms from people of why you're not choosing your own people and all of that, right? But it's karma, it's things that we can't change. It's the chart that we have to serve in this lifetime. So this part of the race issue, when it comes to Stephen and Allison, I understand it from an astrological point of view, so I don't feel the anger or the upset that many African people or African Americans are feeling, in terms of this relationship, right? So let's quickly get into the aspects, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking too closely to the mic. But anyway, looking at this, at the synastry, like we're gonna start with the basics, and then I'm gonna go to the progression, and I'm going to also go obviously to the date, that he passed, to look at what was happening that day, why there's this allegation that he committed self deletion and all of that, right? So starting with the synastry analysis, and of course being extremely careful with my wording. And obviously, with Mars over my ascendant, I need to make sure that my Venus is working and my Mercury are working more than usual. But in any way, I'm going to start with her Ketu and Moon. I'm going to focus on her chart just briefly to explain something very important in her chart. So I already explained that she's got a conjunction of Venus and Rahu in her chart, obviously indicating to us she would marry or she would date people who are different from her, So we see this, but okay. But now, in the opposite sign, she's got Moon and Ketu there. Right there, that Ketu and Moon, it's obviously telling us that she had difficulties with her mother, or she never received, normal motherly nurturing, right? So we can see that. But then with this Ketu conjunct Moon, it doesn't only remain in the childhood, right? It continues in the life of the person, because remember, like I said, that Ketu is here to make us serve the obligations that we did not serve, or to receive rewards that we did not receive. So that means most of your life, you're going to focus on the Ketu part first, or the life itself is going to force you towards where your Ketu is until that duty is completed, or you've been rewarded. And then through progression or certain transit, then you get released, or when your work is done, you get released to enjoy the Rahu factor, like completely without any obligations. But the thing here is that what it's telling us is that this expression or lack of emotions, lack of expressing her thoughts would have continued in her life since childhood, right? But the more she does not give attention to her emotions due to the Ketu factor playing in her life, the more she would seem like, how can I word this? The more she would seem like she doesn't feel for other people. Like she doesn't care for other people, like she doesn't care what other people think, she doesn't mind, she doesn't even know how to nurture perhaps her own children and all of these things, right? So these are usually the things that we see. There would be an action that she does which is contre, which is against her own nurturing of her own children. And we've recently seen another person with the exact same conjunction of Ketu and Moon, and it was P. Diddy. Diddy has a Moon and Ketu as well in a conjunction. So this is showing like a behavior of lacking normal emotional expression, or even not feeling real emotions, or how emotional bonding is, like real bonding. And then due to childhood, of course, but as I said, it's something that we need to experience. But in any case, what's happening now is that he comes in and he places his Venus, Sun, Mercury, and Saturn with this Ketu and Moon. So of course now it's telling us that she's got all of that energy of Ketu, detachment, lackness, distance, emphasized on his love, authority, communication, and profession, right? But at the same time, due to the Moon factor, it would feel like sometimes she's distant, and sometimes she's loving, sometimes she's like this, and sometimes she's the opposite. So just wavering in between the Moon and the Ketu, the Moon and the Ketu, the Moon and the Ketu. So the relationship would have been like that, or would have felt like this, according to the synastry. But at the same time now, because he's placing all of these important planets with this Ketu, he would have felt like maybe he was investing money, love, affection, pride, humility, respect, communication, commitment, all on her, right? In return for emotional attachment, which would not be consistent due to the Ketu. So it was there was instability in how, in what he would have felt, or he would have received in return, basically. Right, but at the same time, due to this Ketu here, we can see that is also conjunct with his Saturn, telling us that there could have been some breakups or separations in between, which of course we never heard about them because they were private people, right? But from this synastry, we can see that it would have been a factor in their relationship. And with her Ketu conjunct his Mercury, obviously this one she's already said it, she's already told us that, there was a lack of communication between them, because yes, her Ketu is with his Mercury. So even he himself, he would have felt like even if he was talking to her, she was not listening, she was not available, she didn't care. Basically, this is how he would have felt, because his Mercury is in Virgo. It's in Virgo. I'm using sidereal, by the way. It's in Virgo and it's exalted, meaning that he had good communication skills, but when it came to her, he couldn't speak with her because he felt blocked by the Ketu. But at the same time, it's attached to her moon, and Mercury and moon together, they don't gel at all. So not only was he blocked on a physical point of view, like from communicating with her, even emotionally, because he would think logically and think that her reactions are not making sense. So he felt a distance. The Ketu placed a distance, and it is also regarding to his work. It's showing here that there are jobs or professions or work or side hustles that he would have been doing, and she wouldn't know about it. Like, she wouldn't have known at all about those jobs, because this is certain here. At the same time, it's also showing that even the commitment he would have placed, at times it would have felt like it's being not appreciated. Now, the most critical point is going back to what I always say, that moon and sun and Saturn conjunction, because she's got her moon conjunct with his Saturn, which is showing an obligation to nurture something or to nurture children together, like I explained even recently. And of course, as we know, they've got babies together, and at the same time, on top of this, there is a stepchild, right, from her, right, her daughter, I think. So, which, by the way, he adopted, because Saturn is here and it's an obligation, it's a commitment. Saturn is going to want to commit fully, right? Particularly because it's in Virgo. Virgo is about work, so Saturn is going to want to commit, and Virgo is owned by Mercury, which Saturn really likes, right? So you can see it from the signs as well, how it would have panned out like it did in any case. Now, we have his moon conjunct with her sun. Here it places an understanding. This is an understanding of respect, whereby both partners would have respected each other. However, she's got her sun in Capricorn, and he's got his moon in Capricorn. Remember, I'm using sidereal, I'm not using tropical. So what it's telling us is that even though they would have respected each other, the respect would have came or would have been formed out of status. So, like, if they were not having the same status that they did, because it's Capricorn is about status. It's about building a name that will be respected in the community, so that you can have you can climb social ranks and all of that. But at the same time, it's telling us that there was a discomfort with this. Why? Because the sun doesn't feel comfortable in Capricorn. Moon is not accepted by the Capricorn energy, right? So even though he would have felt good about it and comfortable about it, there would be structures that are hindering his emotions, that are hindering him to express how he really felt, to express his emotions publicly. So he would have swallowed all of that emotion to himself and kept it to himself, so as not to embarrass, so to speak, their name or their place in the society, or even compromise his job, right? So he would have shown up, as a strong person, a person who's serious, a person that people can depend on, and on the other side, he's just bottling up all his emotions, because he can't express them freely here in Capricorn. The structures don't allow him, or the job, or he felt like his status doesn't allow him to freely express his emotions. On the other side, her sun, in Capricorn, would have, wanted to shine, wanted to be, wanted to, go out there, but there would be some sort of important. She feels like it's not enough, I'm not enough, you're not good enough, you don't fit here. And then those are structures that can confirm all of those things that, in order for you to be here, you have to work with people, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that, right? So there were these frustrations that they had individually, and of course, which would have been increased by the position of her in the kind of situation, because she's going to live in Cancer, which is putting a strain on this conjunction. Now, when we talk about Lilith here, there would have been a lot of stuff happening within their home that they're trying to cover up, or that is trying to be covered up, because Cancer represents our home, represents our nurturing, represents our mothers. So there's a whole lot of dark energy, controversial energy or activities that are hidden within suppressed within the home environment, or above the mothers, or there's some energy here between mothering or like the home life, which has been hidden and we've been trying to be hidden. But as we can see now, she's exposed both sides, because both her
her son, that is, opposite her own direction now. But her son, he's explaining everything, right? Finally, he was looking at the touches of the continent. When we can see the wall, so we're going on the opposite side. It is so I do have her moon and the feature that I said. Now this conjunction also with them, we are seeing it in the upper neck with she's coming out, she's believing him quite through communication, which is each day is getting close, getting sure, and it's in the community sharing everywhere due to the
I do have now her Saturn conjunct his Lilith. Something again about work or relating to the commitment itself. It could have been relating to other endeavors, such as maybe the exploration, like things they explored in that are tainted. But because her Saturn is in Sagittarius, it's not only about exploring and their travels that she's talking about, it's also about through publication, because remember, Sagittarius is a sign of publication. And as we know, she's come up with a book and she's saying things about her that are tainting his name within the public. Remember, Lilith, tainted activities, tainted manner, tainted behavior, and boom, right? So what else? Not only does she have her Ketu with his Venus, she also has her Saturn with his Ketu, again confirming what I just said, that they would have had breakups in between. They would have broken up, came back together, broken up, came back together, and in some instances there would have been a physical distance in between them. Maybe one had to travel due to work, Saturn due to work or other obligations that they would have had, right, or other commitments. So that's visible. I do have her Moon conjunct with his Venus. This is beautiful. I love to see this. I love Moon and Venus together because they promote nurturing, they promote having children, they promote a family life, and also increasing resources within the family, right? But I want to go back to that Ketu and his Venus there. The thing is that you can see here that there's some money that he would have lost, or he would have invested towards her or towards making her feel good and all of that, right? Get you separating from your luxuries, separating from your money, separating from your affection and all of that, right? But with this Moon and Venus in a conjunction, it creates money. So money would have came, gone, continuing this thing, right? Also, I do have her Sun conjunct his Moon, promoting that respect of each other, like I said, but his Moon is also trine with her own Moon. Very nice. Very family orientated. We're going to have children, we're going to have a family, we're going to travel together, we're going to build resources together. Emotionally, we want to do things together. I want to understand you. I am here. But because her Moon is not alone, is with Ketu, there would be these breaks of sometimes I feel like I understand you, sometimes I feel like you don't, sometimes I feel like I can get closer to you, sometimes I feel like I can't, right? Also, with her Venus opposite his own Venus, I would prefer them together, because what it's saying here is that because hers is in Pisces, exalted, feeling extremely happy, extremely comfortable, whereas his one is in a debilitation in Virgo, feeling like it has to serve, feeling like it has to do work, do their dirty jobs. So he was literally feeding her Venus in this relationship, and she was just enjoying, taking, and she's got her Rahu, definitely enjoying the best life of from what he could provide due to the placement of their Venus in signs, right? I'm continuing to record a day after, so if I repeat myself, I'm sorry. I will try to edit out as much as I can, and if I miss something while editing and I repeat, what I have said, I am sorry. I just needed to, it was late at night, so I needed to stop the recording, and Anyway, continuing, I also have, her Rahu, obviously, opposite, his Venus, Sun, Mercury, Saturn. I prefer a Rahu to be opposite Sun, for sure, but then I don't enjoy when Rahu is opposite Saturn or opposite Mercury, because these are his friends. So I'd rather have them in a conjunction to have the best result, right? So it shows here there could have been, a compromise that they had to do in terms of their goals and what they wanted to achieve, and how to make them be practical. So that's what it's meaning. Of course, I have that Lilith of hers opposite his moon, and here, as I said, it's showing some sort of controversy regarding mother or motherly things, domestic things, family life. Of course, now we've come to know all about this, right? Because his mom is coming out to say that she feels, that Allison is not doing good things by her son, and we're hearing all these stories, and of course, it's due to that Lilith, right? I also have an opposition of their Jupiters, right? So I do have her Jupiter opposite his Jupiter. And what it actually says, because, she's got her Jupiter in Aries, right? Which is, she's always trying to make actions or take actions, like live actions towards her beliefs. And she's passionate about her belief systems and what she believes in. Like, if she wants to travel, she will just decide on the go and just leave, right? Whereas he has his Jupiter in Libra. Everything is deliberate, everything is weighed. He would, even with his own belief systems, he would try to make sure that it's according, the people around him. And people with the Jupiter in Libra, they do tend to sacrifice their own beliefs at times to please the people around them, right? So you find a lot of sacrifice regarding the belief systems, and meaning that they would also do things that they don't necessarily agree with, but because other people believe in it, and then a Jupiter in Libra would sacrifice themselves or their own beliefs, right? Whereas she's the opposite. She sticks to what she believes in, right? So with that differences in the belief systems, you could obviously see that they were always trying to find the middle ground, right? And of course, Jupiter in Libra is not comfortable, so he would have found himself in different positions where he had to abide by other people's belief systems, where he had to take aside his own beliefs and take on the beliefs of other people's, right? With this anemic vibe that Jupiter is in Libra, it really can't function well. So he really sacrificed himself to make sure that other people's beliefs were not threatened, or they did not feel like they could be overpowered by his own beliefs. So this is their vibe that was there. So I do have their Chiron's conjunct, of course, because they born in the same period, 1982, 1988. And with their Chiron's conjunct, though, they are opposing their conjunction of Mars, because I have her Mars conjunct his Mars, which is with Uranus. And there's the Chiron in the opposite side, right? So what is meaning here is that when they were passionate, they were really passionate because it's in Scorpio, but at the same time, there could have been lots of secrets, sudden things happening, and which were either against their marriage or, amongst themselves as well. And with his Uranus here, this plays a big role because it's going exactly to how he passed on suddenly, and it's a mass factor, and, Scorpio is about death, and it was a sudden death, through a gunshot, and both of their Marses are in the Scorpio of secrets, of suicide, of murder, of, things like this. Right, and it's opposite their Chirons, meaning that, it was a way of trying to get away from feeling pain, trying to get away from feeling wounded, right? And of course, we saw that. And we do have a conjunction of their Plutos, as lots of people who are born in the 80s have the same conjunction regarding the Pluto, but it is conjunct his Jupiter in that Libra sign, right? So not only he had to sacrifice his own belief systems, but he also felt like he also needed to help other people fight for their power, other people fight for transformation, and himself, he had to transform. Obviously, when you sacrifice something, you transform in the process of doing that, right? I do have her Venus sextile his Moon, again showing us that nurturing vibe that they had, their children. He adopted her daughter, so that is very visible. I have, her Venus opposite his Saturn. Now here you can see that obviously they would get married because Venus and Saturn, making an aspect to each other, a seventh aspect, of marriage commitment, right? But at the same time, obviously with this opposition, it's highly indicating one person being in discomfort, whereas the other person, is super happy, right? And when you look at this one, it's just showing that the Saturnian energy, which was him, he was always working, servicing towards her or towards her needs, because her Venus is in the exaltation. So everything that he did, all the work that he did, he worked hard, to make sure that she was happy in the relationship, and that in return he could be loved by her, right? I do see. And obviously because her Venus is conjunct with Rahu and opposite his Saturn and Venus, here it's highly indicating that at some point in their relationship there could have been a third party, or rumors of a third party. Obviously we did not hear anything, right? But according to the Synastry, that would have been the case. I do have her Saturn making a square to his Venus, right? Remember, her Venus is opposite his Saturn, but then her Saturn is making a square to his Venus, which is a typical relationship thing where people, have to make compromises in marriage, sacrifices to make their love work. And here is showing us also that there would have been responsibilities or obligations that needed to be dealt with, or to make compromises and sacrifices in the marriage, which is a bit normal. With a square like this, a square is not something to break up on. It's something that you need to compromise and sacrifice. That's it about. So, I do have her Saturn making a semi-sextile to his moon. Here again is showing that she was benefiting a whole lot from him, and he was investing his emotions, towards her. But for her, she had some rules or structure and a distant nature. So she was very distant here emotionally, and she was extremely detached when it comes to being emotionally involved, but because it's due to that Ketu. And again, here this Saturn is confirming that as well, right? So, and that is their synastry, like the aspects. So it's like she had so much baggage that she came in with in the relationship, which took a toll on him, because everything from his side is saying, I want to commit, I love you, I'm emotionally open, I'm emotionally available, affectionately available, everything that you look for. But on her side, I see detachment, I see oblivion, I see carelessness, I see rules that put structures or that put a distance between them. I see distance, I see possibilities of third parties, coming from her chart. So I see quite a lot of red flags coming from her chart here, right? But anyway, so now going into the last day, the day that he passed on. So, and of course, she's going around obviously with this publication because right now her progressing Venus is conjunct with her Jupiter. Jupiter is about celebration, right? And she's celebrating the publication of her book. Jupiter also represents publishing, right? And so of course it makes sense for her to be going around, celebrating her publication of her book rather. But at the same time, we must remember also that her Ketu is conjunct with his sun. And some people feel like it's misrepresenting, who he was as a person, as a man, as a father, as a son to them. Because like I always say, anytime when Ketu gets conjunct with sun in Synastry, there will be humiliation, there will be embarrassment, there will be something of this sort, and it's playing out right at this moment, right? So which is very unfortunate, which is very unfortunate because he's not here to defend himself, but through the Synastry that is being played out, right? And it's opposite his own Jupiter, again talking through his beliefs. And of course these accusations are about what he believed in, or maybe what he did as well. So that is a very huge thing that is happening right now. And it's also with the conjunction of their Plutors. Pluto is about transformation after death, death relating things or themes, and it's playing out right now. But I do see that in 2026 her progressing Venus will be conjunct with their Chirons at this time, so and opposite their Mars. So there would be some disappointment or revelation regarding something, transformation, because it's opposite her Scorpio, right? So family related wounds coming up at this time in 2026 or around this time, right? So she would be facing those things according to the progression now in her chart. So he passed on the 13th of December 2022, right? And they said it was by self-deletion, right? So on this day, I see that her progressing Venus was conjunct with, his moon and her sun at this time, and opposite that Lilith again that she's got. And Lilith, remember, is suppressed desires, it's tainted desires, it's just, like dirty thoughts as well. And she's got that Lilith activated here. I do see that her progressing Venus was also conjunct with his own progressing Venus at this time in Capricorn, right? I also have, which is fine, really. Venus in Capricorn is happy because it can focus on practical things and the commitment in general, so it doesn't have a problem here. So this would have been okay, traditional commitment secured, all of that. I do have her progressing Venus also conjunct with her own progressing Saturn. Here, this is where the problem comes in, because Saturn and Sun together in whether it's over progression, it puts a bit of pressure, particularly here because it's in Capricorn, and Sun in Capricorn is feeling a lot of pressure, is feeling misplaced, is feeling a lot of restrictions from shining or from getting the spotlight and all of that due to obligations and everything. It becomes highly indicative of this event that happened, because I have her progressing Mars here that is conjunct with her natal Venus in Pisces, which is also with Rahu, her natal Rahu. Now Mars and Rahu are going to cause some havoc, right? And it is opposite her own Ketu and Moon, right? So a lot of fiery energy of Ketu and Mars here with the detachment happening, and of course a loss, of a spouse here, because it's opposite Venus, right? So that is activated, and death to a spouse, because Mars over Venus, as I've said before, they cause trouble, harm to Venus. Venus is also not only women, but Venus is also spouse, so of any gender. As long as the spouse, it's also Venus. So you can see here that her progressing Mars conjunct with Venus and Rahu, opposite that Ketu and Moon on this day. However, it is also conjunct his Venus, Sun, Saturn, and Mercury. Whenever you put all these planets together in one place, definitely a war ought to come out of the conjunction. And here, unfortunately, it came out as this event. On top of this, her progressing Mars is also opposite his progressing Mars here as well, because his own progressing Mars was conjunct that stellium of Venus, Sun, Mercury, Saturn. And again, anytime when you see Mars and Saturn, is also another physical altercation that you see. It's just not a good thing, right? And it's so weird because it's so intertwined with her chart and her own Mars, so which is really something that is not settling, like his passing is tightly linked to her chart, to her Mars, to her Ketu. Normally you usually see some loss from the spouse, but then here it's with the Mars, it's tightly linked together, right? And I also, looking from his chart on its own, I have his progressing Venus opposite her Lilith. Again, I have his progressing Venus opposite her Lilith, her suppressed thoughts, her tainted desires, and their moons and her sun here. On this day, I also have his progressing Venus conjunct with her progressing Saturn and Sun. Right, so much direct link, direct attachment to her chart and his chart on this day. I also have his progressing Ketu here. Yeah, I have his progressing Ketu conjunct their Jupiters and their Plutos, both of their Plutos. Remember, they have the conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter. I have all of that conjunct with his progressing Ketu. I do have, indicating the loss, which is through transformation and death, of course, because Pluto is all about that. Ketu is about loss. So in this case, loss of his life, and it's attached to their conjunction of Plutos. I have his progressing Saturn conjunct with their Mars, as I said, they have a conjunction of Mars, but now I also have progressing of Saturn. Again, she's literally directly linked to this event, through the synastry. And I have his progressing Mars, conjunct with her Ketu and Moon, as I said, and all of his stadium planets. I do have his moon, his natal moon, opposite now the transiting Moon and the transiting Lilith, so that his mind was really pressed here on this day. It was under the influence of his her Lilith, and also the transiting Lilith. So his moon was not only under the transit of Lilith, but also under her own Lilith. I do have his natal moon also conjunct with the transiting Saturn and the transiting Pluto. Like his mind, because moon is about mind. His mind on this day, his emotions on this day were literally shattered because of all these transiting planets over his moon, over his mind, right? And the Liliths, the tainted things, tainted activities, criminal activities. And of course, this also shows, the pain that the mother would have felt as well, the pressure that the mother would have felt, the tough transformation that his mother would have felt as well, with that Pluto and Saturn here. I do have, the transiting Sun on this day conjunct with his natal Mars, which again is conjunct with her Mars. Right? Now, you remember when I made a video about spouses who delete their spouses? I had the Sun Mars coming up quite a lot in my study, because I took so many charts. I don't remember, maybe close to 70 charts that I studied, and this Mars and Sun kept coming up. And again, here we see today, we have the Sun, the transiting Sun conjunct with both of their Mars, because they have a conjunction of Mars. It's like she's so, her chart is so closely attached to this day and to the event, through her planets, and so this is also opposite the transiting Mars as well, and they are conjunction of Chirons. They are conjunctions of Chirons, which is conjunct the transiting Mars here. So yeah, I do have his Ketu, Lilith, and Neptune conjunct with the transiting Mercury and a transiting Venus. Venus is spouse, Mercury is a friend, and they are conjunct. The transiting ones are conjunct with his Ketu, Lilith, and Neptune. Everything sinister is just shouting out from these conjunctions and these transits and all of these things. All right. So that is it. Everything is alleged. This is speculation. This is synastry. Astrology just translating what the planets are saying. Right. And yeah, and just let people love who they want to love. If somebody wants to love somebody who's different from them, they're just following their chart. It's really something we're not supposed to be judging at this point. When it comes to race, I mean, people are just following their charts. On that note, thank you all. See you in a future show.